Welcome back. Welcome back to a Twirl Talk Tuesday. And I'm so glad that you all could join us and talk about something that people have asked about. And it's relevant. We're shifting, we're changing all the time. And in the activity that we're in, we all are just trying to make it work for kids. So, joining on the panel tonight is a variety of people who've been figuring it out. So the person from Florida that has had an in-person competition, I think maybe it's a landmark, Lori. So it's Lori Marcus. They had the pumpkin patch competition and they're looking towards another one. So thank you for joining us, Lori. And I know that these kids were so excited to see each other. And I hope you felt that.
Yes, yes, and thank you for having me. It ended up being very successful and very safe. So I feel like it can be done.
Okay, wonderful. I can't wait to hear. Dennis Kaminsky, he was part of the team with the Collegiate Spectacular. And this was so fun because these college kids have not gotten an opportunity to do anything. So, Dennis, thank you for joining us tonight. And tell me about the team that put Collegiate Spectacular together.
Um, there was a group of friends who were all in twirling, and we get together on Zoom, and we said, you know what, we need to do something for our college athletes. Get the batons in their hands. We feel sorry for the freshmen who are never going to take the field as a rule. And then the seniors who are going to miss their last year on the field, perhaps not do a bowl game, perhaps not even get to be with the band, but yet we wanted to do something. But the goal was to really get batons in all of their hands and get many people twirling and participate in a virtual fun format where we got to meet each one of the athletes. And it was
Wonderful.
exciting.
We will circle back and we will
And then,
go in depth with that. So thank you. Thank you for joining me tonight. Because I never know right now if people are like hanging out, not doing anything, or some people have classes. If you're in Michigan, tonight's it. After this, you're done. Also joining me is from Illinois and Canada, Kim Jenton. And Kim has had, she's put the Jewel of Atlantis on hold that was in person, which was going to be a spectacular event and is still out there, I think, waiting. But then in the meantime, has done Trick or Twirl and has some other things waiting in the queue. So, Kim, thanks for joining me tonight. I can't wait to talk about this.
Thanks for having me.
It's always exciting. It's fun to chat with you. And then finally tonight is Tracy Ganji Johnson and has had the Bay State Games and was so successful with the first one that they're moving on to other ones. So Tracy, I can't wait to hear about that. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And
I'm excited to contribute.
Well, these talks have been so fun because I get to meet and talk with people that maybe I saw at IC or maybe I saw at Grand Prix somewhere or somewhere around the way, but we've never had time to chat. So at least tonight is, pretty focused and we have the opportunity to talk about it. So let's start from some of the questions that people would have because I think the future is looking part of my viewpoint has been I think public education has changed forever. I don't think you're ever going to go back to just strictly in person. I think there might always be a virtual option. So, what if that is happening with twirling? What if there's always a virtual option and you are pioneers? All of you are pioneers in what's happening here. So, Dennis, tell me about the Collegiate Spectacular. The origin was a group of friends talking about it and tell me, how'd you lay the groundwork for what you were going to do?
well, the groundwork started with coming up with a concept and then developing it. And to be honest with you, as we started going along, we were meeting like once a week going, okay, what about this? What about that? Just kind of reinventing things. We had the basis laid out. So what we originally thought is let's get a competition out there, some type where we can reward the different conferences within football because we wanted to do everyone outside. Well, then I'm like, well, we need to make it more exciting than just a conference winner? What happens if there's one person from one conference? What do we do? How do we, so then we came up with the basketball tournament format, going head to head instead of 20 kids at one time that you're judging. So therefore we split it up into the conferences. And then after we scored each conference winner, then we ranked them overall, all of the girls. And then we went into a tournament format, head to head, until we got down to the final four. And then, or the actual final eight. And then we picked the top four from there.
It was really exciting. It was, I think that it was exciting to watch because we have no sports to watch. This was the closest thing that we had. And don't forget, we had a guy. We had Troy in there too.
We did. And you could, we let them submit a new video if they wanted to. We had different deadlines for that. So allowing them to perform as much as they want or keep the same video throughout. And it worked both ways for all of the people involved. There was one girl that made it to the 8 with her one video. And then there were other people that submitted one for each round. So depending on how aggressive, you know, that university might be, or that child might be, or how well she performed, you know, it was exciting for them to submit different videos along the way.
Well, and we'll talk about the technology and the media aspect of it as we go along here. But I think also it allowed people to up their game. So when you saw what you were up against, then you knew what you had to do better. So that was kind of unique, maybe, because I've seen a bunch of different formats. So we will circle back, Dennis. Thank you. So Kim, tell me about how did you formulate Trick or Twirl? And what was your thinking behind that and how you came up with what to do with it?
Well, I think it was probably a little selfish to begin with, is that I was trying to figure out how I would continue our programs, both in Canada and here in Illinois, keep going, when in September we were really faced with, you know, no gyms or the possibility of not really having a program. So that's what really got me thinking about it. And I think that some of the free things that we offered in the competition setting, for example, decorate your baton. I mean, it was nothing that was really earth shattering, but that you could, a teacher could take her class and you know, bring things and make up a routine. They could dress up. So the idea was throughout September that you would, if you brought them to your house, which I think we've all done at one time or another, or had them in your driveway and you had some good weather, that there was things that you could do that you know, even outside. So that's what really got it rolling, and it certainly helped us in our Chicago program, is where we specifically focused it. So yeah, I think that was where it started. And then we just decided to do other things along with it. And it became a full competition. And I was absolutely surprised at the great response that we got. And we weren't expecting that. And we certainly learned a great deal.
Yeah, I think that's, if nothing else in 2020, it's all been about how we've all learned to do new things. So
Mhm.
Tracy, tell me about Bay State Games. Tell me about how that started and what the foundation of that was.
Sure. Well, we've been fortunate enough to have baton twirling as part of the Bay State Games since 2005. So it's been a long while, and it came about because USTA had made a pitch to the national organization. So even though I don't do a lot through USTA, they actually pulled me in because the office is right in the same town that I live in. So it was super convenient. So this has been a small endeavor over the years because it has to fit in with this Olympic style event. But they, over the summer, had approached me after we had already canceled the live competition that was supposed to be in June about doing a virtual one, because they were just online and had discovered some other state games were hosting baton twirling events. So So it started because the games approached me about trying a virtual version. And even though it still remained small in the October rendition of it, they got a lot of great feedback directly at the games office, and I received some of it and passed it on too. So I think it was this outlet that people, were looking for just an opportunity in a competitive setting, but not really competitive. Everybody sort of understood that we just did the best we could. Because some kids were inside and some kids were outside and some kids got rained on and whatever. Some people were in low ceilinged, like carports to sort of get out of the weather, but couldn't do the tosses. So the judges understood that, and I think the competitors understood that it was just an opportunity to perform and show where they were at that given moment.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about that so remind me if I forget. I want to talk about the technology that it's taken to develop it. I want to talk about how you decided to judging, how the judging was going to happen. There's just so much about the mechanics of it that I want to go into. So Laura, you've been the in-person competition. You're the unicorn here that in Florida, you were able to have an in-person competition. So please tell me, what was the groundwork you laid that made you feel like you could do that in Florida?
Well, the pumpkin patch competition is a competition we've had every year that funds our state competition. It's run by the council. And since our state competition was canceled back in May, I had been thinking of ways to be able to hold an in-person contest safely. Once USTA let me know that as long as I was compliant with the insurance protocols, I was able to get a sanction. So I had already had a list of things that I felt needed to be done to keep people safe. So following their protocols as well as the schools was pretty easy. The first thing I did with the group that I work with is came up with a list of everything that could potentially cause spread and how it could be handled, from the handling of score sheets to the amount of people and how we were going to social distance in a gym.
Okay, so let's go ahead here. Let's go ahead and talk about the mechanics of how did you make this day work?
Well, we had already had the gym, we already had always planned on doing it. It was just a matter of figuring out how we could do it. So the most important thing was we came up with a list of rules, and there were no exceptions. I mean, the rules were the rules. And the list of rules went out with the entry form. And the athlete or parent, depending on the age, had to sign off on the waiver that they would follow all these rules. And these rules were not only listed in the brochure, but on a separate waiver. And so that nobody could come to the contest. For example, one of the things where you were allowed to have one parent or guardian, no non-twirling siblings. And so nobody could come and say, oh, well, I couldn't get a babysitter. Well, I'm sorry, but you knew coming into this that those were the rules. And, the minute you make one exception, then you have to make lots of exceptions. And, then you got a lot going on. Anyway, so that was important. And then the other thing is it had to be very well organized and transparent. So another thing we did that was extremely helpful was we did our lineup. Obviously, we were on the set system, and the lineup was sent out 10 days before the competition, so that anybody who had any problems or conflicts, it was taken care of ahead of time. And so there wasn't people rushing the desk you weren't even allowed in the gym until you were actually twirling. So that alleviated all those problems. And then the most important thing was we had a Zoom coaches meeting the Sunday evening before the competition, where everything was explained to the coaches as far as how it was going to work. We also posted things on social media, but it was very important that the coaches knew what to expect, and everything was explained to them in detail so that they could ask their questions at that point, so that then they could go back to their parents and athletes and explain to them what was going to happen so that there were no surprises the day of the competition.
Okay, and as I understood it, in Florida, this works with nice weather.
Right.
So they couldn't come in the gym until the time they twirled, correct? Or was
Yes,
there a certain number allowed in?
yes, we figured out we were running 4 lanes, so with we came up with a number that with 4 lanes, 10 sets before, since there was no practice in the gym, that was 40 athletes and potentially 40 spectators. So around the perimeter of the gym, we had X's marked off. And 10 sets before you were to compete, you were allowed in the gym. We had 2 checkpoints. We had the initial checkpoint where initially their temperatures were taken and they were given wristbands depending on whether they were a coach, parent, or an athlete. And then they had to go similar to the way our WETF international events are
Right.
run, where you have to check in and somebody has the list of the set numbers and the names and they check you off and then you were allowed in the gym. So you were allowed to actually practice around the perimeter on your X 10 sets. If you were doing another event within the next 10 sets, you could stay in the gym and either continue to warm up or you could go and sit in the stands. But everyone in the gym that was not actively twirling had to wear a mask. So if you wanted to sit and rest for 5 sets and go or talk to your mom or your coach in the stands, you put on a mask.
Okay. Well, and there's some pretty cool masks out there for twirlers right now combined with costumes. They're looking amazing. So this is really cool to hear, and congratulations to you on figuring it out and making it organized and well run and safe. So, Dennis, tell me about the technology end of things. What did you have to figure out from a technology standpoint to make this work?
Well,
Oops, hang on, hang on. I muted you by accident. I'm so sorry. Go right ahead.
okay.
Okay.
So we had everyone send their videos to a central email, and whether that was you sent it in as an MP3, whether you sent it in as a shared Dropbox, whether you shared it via YouTube. We didn't tell them and restrict them as to how they could, because I'm pretty tech savvy as far as being able to open up each of the videos. What was the challenge for each one of the contestants that sent it in that didn't give us permission to share it?
Right.
Or Kyle, I'm just going to pick on you and say, if you sent it to me and you didn't give permission in that MP3 to share it, I was the only one that could watch it right there at that time. So if I wanted to forward it to the judges, I couldn't do that. I needed to ask you permission. So then I had to go back to the coach, the athlete, whomever may have shared it, get permission from them, and then to be able to forward it. So it was a little challenging, but it was easy enough for one person to take charge of that, collect them all, and put them into separate folders. For example, we ran it as, like I said, a basketball tournament format. We had, I'm just going to pick on the Ruby division. I set up 4 folders: Ruby, Sapphire, and I forget what the other 2
Emerald
were.
and Diamond.
Emerald and Diamond. There you go. So I set up 4 folders, and I would just drop that into each one of those folders, so the staff and the committee could always see whose videos were coming in. And then once we got the judges' commitment, you could go right into the Ruby and select Kyle and Lori. You were, against one another. You send that video to the 5 judges, and it was easy to share that way. So you have to be tech savvy and you have to be organized as
Right.
you're getting lots of videos in.
Right. And so did you find that pretty labor intensive?
Um, it could be. It could very well be very labor intensive. I say it could be, but I have access at my work, so I was able to do it throughout my entire work day. Because I own my own business, I was able to have the email up and just drop them into the folders right away that same day.
Okay.
But if you didn't do that throughout the 8 hours, that you were at work, or 10 or 12, and then you went home and did that, bang, wow, that could get very labor intensive.
Is there
Very-
something you would change about the future in the way you did that?
Probably not. Probably not. Because it was simple for the contestant, the athlete, the coach, the band director, simple for them to send that format in. As far as changing something, maybe the live performance, we're still talking about that. The Final Four doing a live performance.
Okay.
It's a little tricky, challenging, like Tracy had said, whether, we looked at, once we had the final 8, we looked at what weather was coming. We had the West Coast, we had the East Coast, we had the South, we had the Midwest, and so it was like, okay, they're getting rain here on this day, they're getting rain here on this day. So we did say it would be a live performance, and we allowed them like virtually 2 days. You pick the day and the time that was convenient for you.
Okay.
And I had a clear schedule, and then someone else from the staff joined us, joined myself,
Uh-huh.
and then one of the judges' representatives to watch the live performance.
Okay.
So, and that was actually what we showed, and we explained to everyone, although it was a live performance, it wasn't being done live at that time.
Correct. Correct.
So we'd address that again. I'm not quite sure how or what might be simpler for that, but there were more than 100 people, so it was very choppy to
Okay.
watch the live performance as you played it back.
Yeah.
Now, I have learned a lot of things through Zoom and Teams and
WebEx
other
and
formats
other ones. Right.
that may be simpler, and it wouldn't be as choppy.
Right.
That-
Okay. And the technology world is catching up with everyone too. So who knows? So Kim, tell me about the technology behind what you were doing and how much you had to figure out.
Okay, well, that, are you saying that with a straight face? You clearly have never been on, I've done a lot of Zoom things, and, I think I'm a pretty good idea person, but honestly, I surround myself by a group of young people who I make sure on a yearly basis owe me a favor, and I say, guess what I'm doing? And they know they're in.
You're
So
a smart woman. That's
that's it. But I tell you, if anything ever goes, and here's the great thing is, my daughter's selling her house, and she has moved in with me for a couple of months, and that's been perfect because now on my bottom floor, I just have access to somebody all the time. Please come help me. It's gone black. But anyway, that's really what happened. Is the only real mistake we made from a technology point of view is, if you want to call it that, is that we put out that whenever you paid for your entry, you got your Dropbox. And I thought everybody would enter, pay, and then we would send the Dropbox to them to load their video. And see, I even know the terms now, so I am growing, even though when I press the button it doesn't work, but that's okay. So people didn't pay until right before the competition, which didn't give us enough time really to, as when Dennis was talking about that time to get organized, is the people on our staff do work during the day, like had other jobs. So when we do it again in February, we're going to send them the Dropbox as soon as they enter. Well, we haven't decided yet if we're going to actually do it live or we're going to do it the same way. We'd like to try it live, but from other people, we have found out that there's so many technological problems. And I've done a few other things with Zoom where people are on the spot and having to perform. And they say, you're kind of in the middle of I've done a couple of like small contests on short program and stuff. And then they say, Kim, it's their turn, Kim, I can't connect. Or, and then it stops everything.
Right.
So I do think that the live sense, if you can't do it like Lori did, I think live is the next best thing for people to watch and be a part of. But if something goes wrong, or you remember the day that you did that Zoom night and you had that big electrical storm, and I think you were like outside in an
I was
umbrella.
in my car. I was in my car.
Wishing your Wi-Fi to come down on you, kind of thing. That's what I'm a little bit afraid of. So, we're kind of talking back and forth and maybe doing half and half, not being totally dependent on it, or doing things like solo one day of the weekend. So you're not focused on an 8-hour time slot, if you know what I mean, like a day, or if you don't get it done that day. But yeah, that, it was very time consuming. And I'll tell you something that I really did learn is that we spent a lot of time. We wanted some new judges and on the team, so that they were fresh comments, somebody that nobody had a whole lot of, like we had Jen Marcus and she did a great job. And then but we asked some people that we knew had a really good reputation on critiques, because we sent the Dropbox. We said, take as much time as you want. We want a really full score sheet back so that the people come back again. And I think we got a lot of comments saying we did a good job on that. However, if you asked somebody my age, what they agreed to do it, but then they didn't realize what they were going to have to do: load the Dropbox, download it and all that. And then you've already asked them, they don't know how to do it. So then those people kind of ended up doing it, sending it, and then we had to download it or put it onto the score sheet. So we actually learned a whole lot that way. I thought it was really time consuming, but I'm ready for the next one. I'm ready to teach the course on the things not to do, and I'm ready to do the things that we can.
That's why you're here tonight. No, I had to laugh when you're saying about learning stuff, because it's like, for me doing the WBTF entry, it's like by the time you make it through doing the WBTF entry for the US team, you're like, how to move all this stuff around. So, but everything is new. I mean, it's always evolving. So
it's good for you. I don't know if you can see my it's really my husband's office, but he's got all these computers set up for me that looks like I'm really I really know what I'm doing, and I must have some, high prominent job or something. But what people don't know is it's just because I find that I can see what's happening better when I have like some bigger screens and stuff. But I spent the first 3 months teaching my kids looking at the wrong computer, and none of them ever told me that all they were seeing was the side of my face. Because I was looking at the one in front of me and the camera was on the other side. So listen, I've made every mistake possible.
No, that's how we learn. That's how we learn, and it's part of the fun of the journey. So Tracy, tell me about Bay State Games and your involvement in the setup of the twirling end of it. And was it live? Was it video sent in? How is it done?
Yeah, so there's two parts to that. We actually did live virtual, and it was through Zoom. And the input from the games was they really wanted to keep it live because it felt more like a, you put it out there, and however it is, there's no opportunity to finesse it with, any fancy videography or redos. So they were sort of looking at it and more like just put your best foot forward, and it is what it is. And I was okay with that because in the past had experience taking in a team and show twirl and rhythmic twirl music and trying to compile it into a playlist and getting all the volumes the same and all that kind of stuff. And that was my idea, and I'd taken it on, and I'd done that for a couple of years, and it's just a lot of work. And I just could not imagine how that would have played out with videos. And I just thought that it would be a much more involved. And at this point, I didn't have that kind of time. I didn't want to play with that. And then conversely, the other piece is that I was very comfortable with Zoom by this point, because back in March, within a week of the state of Massachusetts closing down, I was able to get Zoom running and have my classes running on Zoom. So we've been doing it since March, and you know, just one meeting room and breakout rooms. And I'm not an expert, but I think I'm in pretty good shape. And so I felt comfortable doing that. So we decided that it would be all live, and that the only exceptions would be if somebody had technical difficulties, we would see if they could connect late. You know, we would try to work it out, but at worst case scenario, they would take a video and then send it, and we would make it work, you know, at the last minute. Fortunately, and I got to find some wood to knock on, there were no difficulties like that. Nobody had to send a video in, nobody got disconnected. I know that some videos were glitchy while they were being judged, but I think it was a fairly consistent thing. So everybody was at an equal disadvantage, if you call it that.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing compulsory evaluations. And so it was so cute because we'd be in parking lots and they'd have to wait for a car to go by, or they'd be in a living room and have to back up. And then it was just really cute because then all of a sudden they do this compulsory and I'd have to say, I'm so sorry you froze up.
Right.
And you have to do it again. So I think if anything through all of this, we're learning a little bit of grace, and you've got to have a plan A and plan B. Now, I don't know how that plays out for the future as far as, you know, dedication to excellence the first time and, you know, those types of things. But at this point, I think we're just all happy to be doing something. So, Lori, I have to ask you in person. First of all, I think, was it true that the kids could only wear one costume? They were not allowed to change in the facility.
No, that's not true, actually.
Okay.
We encouraged them to not change. They could not change in the facility. But it being Florida, we are at an advantage that we have nice weather. And the school we were at had significant overhang around the perimeter of the building.
Okay.
So they were encouraged to set up their pop-up tents. And if they wanted to change, they could change in their pop-up tents. What we told them was that we encouraged them not to change,
Right.
and instructed the judges to not judge on the costume, but to judge on the twirling. And because we run our contests to be, they're USTA contests, but we follow a lot of the MBTA format of the events. We do have a pageant. So we didn't take away from having curled hair, but they weren't allowed to curl their hair in the facility. And we told them that we encouraged them to model in a bun. And then we instructed the judges that they were not judging on their costume or their bun, but the actual modeling technique.
Okay.
So it was really up to the individual whether they wanted to change. It didn't go against them, but we didn't tell anybody they had to do anything.
Okay. And then how did you handle awards?
Well, the awards, we came up with this, again, we didn't want any extra transfer of paper or awards, or the congregating of the awards table, which tends to happen at contests. So, but on the other hand, it's early in the season and they wanted that critique sheet. So usually at a competition, the judge has their master and they have their score sheet, and they fill out their score sheet, and the score sheets go with the masters to tabulation, and then tabulation separates them, and then they go to awards. What we did was the judge put some comments on the score sheet. You know, we have a flat score, so they put their comments in their flat score, and then they put it on the corner of their judging table. And the athlete could come up and take it directly, and then their scores on their master were what was sent into tabulation. And then, of course, once tabulation tabulated it, that went over to the awards room. We set up the trophies in an awards room, not in the actual gym, with a completely separate entrance in. And they were instructed that they were not allowed to pick up any awards until they were finished competing for the day and all events had been posted on all their events had been posted on the wall. Because as we were tabulating, we were also posting results on the wall outside so that people could see, because just because you have a score sheet with a number on it, you don't know what everybody else in your division has. So Publix had donated those big brown bags, and as tabulation got an event, they would just, instead of it being set up all pretty, we had first place and second place and medals, and they just went like a grocery shopping list, and all of the bags had athletes' names on them in alphabetical order, and they plucked the award and put it in the bag. And when the athlete was finished competing for the day, they went and picked up a bag of awards.
All right. I have two more things. So, did the Florida Health Department have to check in on what you were doing? Was there any oversight of what you were doing?
No, we had to obviously be compliant with the school, and I'm sure somebody from the school was there making sure that we kept our numbers within. We were well below the number that we were allowed, to be honest with you. We had concessions outside, and it so happens the person who runs concessions is certified because he works for Publix. That's our grocery chain. So all of our concessions were pre-packaged food, made in a safe, certified area. Like I said, because we were lucky to have this person. And picnic tables were set up outside, so they were kind of like grab and go kind of snacks that were pre-prepared. So, and he taught me all about touch points. They had a crew of people who were wiping down the handles and the doors. We had one way in and one way out. They were spraying the bathrooms, whatever it was, every hour. So, like I said, it's a council contest. It's not my personal contest. So I have a phenomenal volunteer staff, and everyone was really helpful as far as doing what needed to be done. So if things were sprayed down, one point I walked into the awards room, which was also doubled as the judges room. And they had the little spray thing, and they were going around spraying the tables and the chairs and everything because it was the time for them to be sprayed. So if someone had been there, I wouldn't know about it, but we certainly would have been in compliance.
It sounds amazing. And were people compliant?
Yes. I only had 2 instances where somebody felt that there was an exception, and I handled that. I had somebody who thought that maybe there was no food allowed in the gym whatsoever, except athletes were allowed to have water. But no, if you were sitting in the stands, there was no food, not even water. You can make it 10 sets without a drink if you're not competing. And there was a woman sneaking Sour Patch Kids, and I had to talk to her. But to be honest with you, basically what I told everyone is, look, I'm sorry to be the competition police, but if one person at this competition comes down with COVID and blames it on the competition, that's the end of twirling for everybody, everywhere.
Right. Okay. So Dennis, thank you, Lori. This sounds amazing. Dennis, tell me, you've got your hand up. What's your input?
I just had a question for Lori. Lori, on your permission slip or your, rules and regulations that you had everyone sign, did you have them sign a release as well that they don't hold you or the contest or the school liable?
Yes, we needed that
Okay.
for the USTA sanction. So for their insurance company, that there was a separate, not just the normal indemnity for the building, but there was also a COVID release as well.
The reason I ask that is because we got our school back when they canceled us back in March for this upcoming July. I already had to sign a paper back in March for this upcoming July. I was like, woof, there, and so I was like, oh, do I sign it? Don't I? But we're going to actually take that school liability and include that as part of our entry and have everyone sign it.
Yes, and the key
Um,
is if everybody's if everything is very clear, and my husband's an attorney, so of course I made sure he read over every single waiver, and I checked with him to find out what my personal liability was. So I made sure that I think there were 3 waivers that had to be signed in my entry, and they all had to be signed or we wouldn't accept the entry.
Okay. So Dennis, tell me about the judging system for collegiate. Did you use an MBTA scoring system? Like, what did you come up with as a judging criteria for the collegiate event?
So what we did is we used the NBTA collegiate score sheet as a base, and we actually changed that some of the scoring captions in there. Because we wanted to give credit for visual effect. We wanted to give credit for choreography, and so we made those captions. I didn't want to focus only on twirling difficulty and variety, although I wanted to give that credit. So we took that twirling in the top caption where that is, and we had twirling made it difficulty and variety, so that we could give credit, because it's a field show, which we all know is a whole lot different than competing in a gym.
Right.
So we wanted to give credit to those people utilizing the field and within the showmanship. We know it was hard. Some of the people had to wear masks, so we let judges know, hey, but we got to know them individually because we utilized what we called a personal statement, and we gave them the prompt for a personal statement, and we used that as 25 points. And boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, people either took advantage of it or didn't take advantage of that. Those 25 points, that could be huge. So we changed up that score sheet. And then when it came to the team score sheet, we redid that so that we took out the words teamwork, or we didn't take the word teamwork out. We took the word exchanges out and team exchanges out because some universities could not do exchanges. They couldn't do all of the team stuff. But we wanted to focus it again on a field show in unison and perfection, how well they perform together. So that's what we did with the score sheet. And Kyle, I'd be happy to share that if you already haven't seen a copy of that. It was posted out there on Collegiate Spectacular. So
Right.
we want to do another competition come January, February, where it's high school for the high school kids, and really focus it in 2 different ways. One for people that are going to try out for colleges, and then just for high school performances. So we're calling it a high school one,
Right.
but that's what we're going to kind of focus on, and just one's for college tryout and one for just performances.
Really good thought. I think that's good. And it's because these kids are just not getting the experience to get out there. So Kim, tell me about your judging criteria and how did you judge all these different events and how did you decide who was going to judge it?
Yeah, well, as I said before, we looked at just from experience, people that we thought were really good at writing critiques, like really strong score sheets, because we felt at this time of year, particularly as you were commenting on how you know, it wasn't unusual to see someone doing their solo in a transport truck going behind them. Um, there was all sorts of different venues that people use. So people were not all on the same page. Or I should say all having the same opportunities. So we just, as Lori said, told our judges what we were really looking for was a give back situation. You know, in this time where we haven't really been before, what can we do for our people? And was to give them encouragement and feedback to keep them going and twirling, practicing. And I think we accomplished that. We got a lot of people that wrote and said, you know, that they really, really enjoyed the feedback. So there was no time. We gave the judges the classes, and they made their own time and charge us for that. So, and we selected experienced people, people from NBTA and USTA and CBTF. And we just had a variety of people that we used, and all of them did a really wonderful job, and they understood, you know, what the mission was.
Well, I think that that's been really fun about this time is that the education processes for the professionals in this time have been really inspiring, and opportunities to chat together that we would never normally take or have. So I think that the judging opportunity is really unique and different. It makes you have maybe a different skill set and your accountability. So thank you for offering these opportunities for both athletes and professionals, because I think everyone is growing through them. So apologize for my nose. I'll go ahead and say this on the thing tonight that I have a granddaughter who shared a cold. I don't have COVID. It's okay. Dennis, your hand's up. Go ahead. Tell me what you've got.
Kim, I just wanted to, you had touched back on the previous speaking about some of the judges and utilizing different judges and different for your event. Can you talk to the group about some of the judging and some of the different judges? Like you said, you use Jen Marcus, and then I want to come back and touch back on that, because I thought that was a great point of what you had done or were speaking of at that point.
I'm sorry. So you're asking me,
Like you had said you had used Jen Marcus and some newer judges and younger judges, and
did.
it was
I think speaking to the quality of what you wanted in what you were doing.
Yeah, we wanted, you know, not everybody writes a great score sheet. You know, some people are great judges, and they feel comfortable in saying, you know, if they have 25, 30 kids, they want to be watching the routines. They don't want to be focusing on, they want to get the right winners and the scores. And although that's of course what we wanted to accomplish, and I sure hope we did that, I think that just at this time, I'm not so sure that the winners were important. I think the feedback was the key thing. But I will say is that now it'll be interesting on January, February, and March season doing this, is that because people will either be in their house, except unless you live where Lori lives. So we could all come and stay at Lori's house.
Come on down.
Yeah. But if you are in a cold weather state, or, you know, you live up in Canada, it's just going to be a different dynamic through January, February, and March. And we're really working on trying to think of, you know, what can we offer? What if you don't have, because it's not just about having a gym. Like, you know, you have to have a gym on that day if you do it live. And we definitely had coaches that wrote and said, we will not send a video in. You know, if you'll do it live, that we'll participate, but we will not video our students and send the video in. And I just haven't been able to get my head around that, to be honest.
What was the thinking behind that, do you think?
I don't know. I really don't know whether they thought that, you know, then the video was, you know, Dennis talked about the sharing, is that's a little bit of a hang up, I think, is that, once they sent the video to us, they didn't know where it was going, how many times it was going to be watched, or who was going to be watching it. So if you don't go that route and you do it live, live means that on that day, whatever day we do it, which I think is going to be February 6th, you know, we've chosen a Saturday, but that means you have to have a gym on a Saturday or you can't participate. So the reason that I would kind of like to do it the other way is at least there's some flexibility. You can video it at your lesson or whatever. But, you know, if things don't open up and we're still struggling with some places being able to have a place, then, you know, then what can we do? How are we going to be creative? And we're definitely going to have some things, like it's not going to be looking at the new year of September. It's going to be looking at January. Okay. And, you know, we talked about, you know, having a contest on just on cutbacks, because you can, you know, almost do those in your
Okay.
bathroom. And you know how judges are, you know, lower your elbows and, you know, look at the timing. And so we thought that we would, now don't anybody steal my ideas.
That's a really good thought though, because there's a skills contest, you
Mhm.
know, that there's very reasonably could do a skills contest. So
Well,
yeah.
you know, it's how else are we going to keep them engaged? I think that's almost what the contests need to be called. I'm sure, Lori, that's what you were striving to do in Florida, it's to give, it doesn't matter if they enter one event or four events. It's that they have something on the calendar. I don't know how about you guys, but I always, you know, look forward to my one holiday in the winter, and just not having that seems to be playing with my mind. You know,
Right,
it's like, oh, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be a long winter. Well,
right.
that's what I want to try to avoid with the kids, is that what can we give them? And it sounds like there's going to be a bunch of things that they can participate in. And I think that's going to be key to having another year. If not, I think we'll lose, you know, we'll lose some twirlers.
And I think that
Difficult.
somewhere along the way, the adults have been getting together and we see each other on Zoom, but I don't know that the kids have. So if someone could offer a Zoom opportunity of like, hey, all of you that are friends and compete together, let's do this together. Yeah, Lori, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is it was getting to the point where it's very difficult to get athletes, not just my granddaughter's ages, because I have them to use as gauges, but my, you know, Melissa's older students. It got to a point where they just didn't want to practice their
Mhm.
2-3 hour practices a day because why, you know, and if you don't, you know, somebody else is practicing and then they fall behind and then it's like, well, I just don't want to do this anymore, why bother? So you have to give them a reason to continue practicing the hard stuff, because kids don't want to practice on a good day.
Mhm.
So you know, I think having something to look forward to on any level is gets them going.
Well, and they're over Zoom. I mean, they're sitting in
Yes.
school doing it. Tracy, let me touch base with you before we open the gallery up because I'm sure that people have questions. So tell me about your judging process and what happened with the Bay State Games for that.
Sure. So while it's not an NBTA sanctioned event, we've been following the NBTA rules for the most part, except for ages, all these years, because that's the dominant organization in Massachusetts. So that was just a given. It made it easier to just keep going with that format. It's a really simple competition. We only have 5 events for individuals that we offered: solo, 2-baton, 3-baton, basic marching, and X strut. And normally we would have duet and dance twirl teams, which we didn't do because of, because of COVID.
Right.
And so we just thought this was easier. So I reached out to one of my associates from our live competitions. Her daughter has done probably every virtual competition that has been provided since March. So she had a lot of feedback for me from parent athlete perspective on the different options of how to go about doing things. I reached out to a judge who I knew had judged virtual to get feedback from her perspective. And then she actually got me in touch with a contest director out of Texas, Ashley Wood, who I didn't know before this, but she gave me 40 minutes of her time over the phone and gave me a lot of good information on how to tackle sort of the technology piece. So in her advice or her observation was that she had been fortunate to use a lot of young judges when she ran her first competition. So they were more, in her feeling was they were more technologically savvy. And so that was her suggestion. I didn't quite do that. But I also have as an advantage, because I'm in a twirling family, I have two sisters and a niece who are all judges. So I had one sister in October judging, and I have the other sister and niece judging the one in 2 weeks. And yes, now I sort of, when I make my pitch, I have sort of, you'll have to be familiar with spreadsheets, because I want you to use Google Sheets to fill out a master that will be, already have the math included in it and the names on it. And you just have to plug the scores in for the captions. And you have to have a way of scanning the paper score sheet that gets mailed to you, that you're going to record on, so that you can scan it back to us. And we wanted to use notes in iPhone, for iPhone to share that, those completed sheets. And it worked for 2 of our 3 judges, but the third one at the end, because it didn't work during the day, just rescanned everything with a normal flatbed scanner and, sent it on to us. And we got all the information, within 30 minutes of the end of the competition. So, when I was speaking with the judges, for this particular competition, it's normally the end of the normal season and just a couple of weeks before anyone would be going off to nationals. And so I always ask of them, and did similarly this time, we want the kids to come back at the end of the season. Be kind, these kids, that this is the end, when summer is over, we want them back at baton twirling next year. So leave them on a good note. And then honestly, for the kids who are going to nationals, most of the things, it might be too late to fix. And so I feel like you want to leave them with confidence to go to nationals, that their routine is ready. Because for a lot of kids, with just a week left before they leave for nationals, what are they going to accomplish? So the only thing I changed is, we want these kids to stay engaged. So be positive. And, if it seems like they missed a finger twirl section, could it be because the computer glitched on their, one set of, so try not to be picky that way and find the good things, because we want them to stay involved. I can't hear you.
It sounds like it's an experiment in processes. And so somewhere or other, what is working will rise to the top, and what is not working will be filtered out. So let me open it to the gallery to see if anyone has questions for the panel or any other points of discussion. But this has just been so interesting on what are people doing and how are we going to do it? Because you can tell the number one goal is just keeping our kids going and staying alive with the activity. And that has been a really common voice since March that
Hey,
everyone.
Catherine, can I add something?
Sure.
It's going to be, and if anybody has any feedback on it in regards to awards, is that we were really stuck on awards and on how we would do that. And I don't know how the rest of the people did that. But so what we did, well, we gave some, if you won something big, like if you won your big solo class or something, we gave a free baton from Starline. That was our big gift. Like if you won something in a big class, or you won 2 events or whatever. But the other awards, we gave some gift cards, is that we offered classes. So if everybody that came first in basic strut is taking is getting a free Zoom class with Addie Bebo, for example, I'm giving you an example. And I'm wondering if people are going to like that, or they're not, because now some people have written and said, like, that's a great prize, but I'm not going to be home that day, or I don't have a gym that day. So our answer back to that is that we recorded it, that the person will record it. And if you can't be there, you still can see the class, so you can see the material. But I don't think that's ever been done before. So I'm anxious to hear the feedback, or if any of the other panelists have any feedback on that.
Well, Jody Wright, I think you're the queen of innovation and keeping kids going. What do you think would be a good solution for the online award situation?
Man, I don't know. I think you're on track. When you first said that, I didn't know what you had done. So my first thought was you could do virtual gift cards. I mean, those are easily purchased where you could, like, I know at least for my job, we do awards for kids, and so they can go online and they can pick like whatever store or restaurant or anything like that that they wanted. Something like that would be across the board, could go to anyone, and then they can choose where they want their gift card to. If you can figure out, I can probably help you figure out how to go on and purchase those. As far as the class kind of thing, I think it would depend on the kid. It depends on the coach as to if they want their student working with that person, if they, I think you're just getting into that kind of thing.
Right. We've got to figure if somebody enters and they pay like, $6 for an entry, and out of that entry, you got to pay your judge, and I don't think there's such a award, a medal is about $2.50. So, I was trying to picture the kid's face when they got a $2.50 gift card. I think their response was going to be, well, no, I'm not going back there. I even looked into Dairy Queen ice creams, how much they would be. One of the reasons that we're going to do it in February is because our theme is going to be chocolate. And so that's going to give us some opportunities, because you can send chocolate. But it's really hard to find an award that you're not buying for $2.50 and spending $5 to mail it.
Right.
Now you're paying over the entry.
Yeah. Tracy, what did you do for awards with yours?
I'm really, really, really spoiled. So I was surprised, but for this particular endeavor, the office not only is dealing with the awards, but they actually filled out the names on the score sheets for me, which I never expected. They don't normally do that. So the games actually provides the medals, the awards, and so they shipped the medals out. So we tabulated everything and just passed it on to the office. They printed out all the score sheets. They collated by athlete. They assembled the gold, silver, bronze, and their medallions. They're heavyweight, and it's really, we're so lucky that they also give always what they call an athlete award for any medalist, and it's normally a windbreaker. And I'm demonstrating the winter version. We're usually a summer game, so this is just like a fleece jacket. And so every medal winner, and we had 19 contestants, so you can guess how many got these. Every medal winner gets a jacket, and they've converted it that it's just the 4 competitions. We're going to run 4 contests. The Bay State Games, Baton Bonanza. It was October, November, another one in January, and one in March. Same format for all of them, and do calculate a high point based on 5 points for first place, etc. Best 3 competitions out of the 4, best 3 scores out of the 4. They're going to give a second athlete award of a similar nature. I mean, in the past, they've given out even backpacks. And you can, for each age group, the top 3 scorers of this sort of high point will get the second award mailed to them. So, and they're going to do all the math and post it on the website through the games. So
I'm looking
they
for
handle the shipping.
I'm looking for a new spring jacket, so I might be your newest entry on the.
Well, I can't promise anything, but for the 3 judges that we had in October, they actually sent them jackets.
Oh, wow.
So,
There you go.
and I have to say, we're all volunteer. It's a nonprofit organization that runs it, and I mean, I love it doing it because, especially the first 10 years or so, we were in the same facility at the same time as many other sports. We were at one of the UMass campus locations, and there was synchronized swimming and wrestling and a lot of field sports happening. And we were the only air-conditioned space in July as it happened. So a lot of people came in the door and watched baton twirling. And they even gave us an opportunity at the opening ceremonies the first 2 years we participated to do a demonstration in front of everybody. So it was just, I really want to do not only what I can do to support baton twirling and my own students and keep it going, but this is an organization that I think really has appreciated baton twirling as a sport. And so I want to help them out too, to sort of bridge this year of having canceled all their other sports.
Well, it sounds like there's an opening for someone to create a directory of all of these virtual competitions that are happening. That we've got a directory at USTA of the in-person when the sanctions are listed, but it almost sounds like we could start a directory of the virtuals. Okay. Does anybody in the gallery have a question? Dennis.
Well, well, first and foremost, Kyle, thanks for hosting this. And second of all, Kim, you brought up some great points with your judges as well. And I wanted to just touch base slightly on that we in the college, both team and solo, for every different round, we had different judges, and we increased the amount of judges as we went along for each of those. But I also felt it was important, if you're anyone gonna venture into trying online, is you have to have a meeting with your judges online. And like Lori, you said earlier as well, you had a meeting with all of the coaches. We also had, open Zoom meetings where any athlete or coach or band director could ask questions. And those
really
were very helpful to, I think, every one of those. And as we had different judges as well, what I also did with the team one is I reached out to not only judges, but I reached out to just teachers who maybe aren't necessarily a judge, and had them judge separately and evaluate so that they could get involved and see. And it worked out. Their scores were just right in line with all the judges as well.
That's a really nice opportunity. That's a nice growth
And
opportunity.
they want, and that way they could get involved and keep their mind fresh and go, oh, that was so creative and so different. And they thanked you and said, that's a different way of looking at things as well. So when you're doing virtual things, whether you're a licensed judge or, let's face it, we want to have fun as well and keep your hands in kids' hands. And we know not everyone, if you're going to try to save some pennies or whatnot, maybe these people will volunteer. The collegiate events, not one of us took 1 penny. We gave every penny back to every team and every solo person. The top 8 kids got money back. The winner got $1,000 in cash.
Oh, I'm going to start practicing. These
$1,000.
awards are
If-
good.
And the top four, actually the three runners up, each got $200.
That's awesome.
And we only asked them each for $25.
Yeah. Well, and I think that
Yeah.
it's,
It-
I mean, it's just been such, nobody's getting rich off this time. And I
Yeah.
think like we've all just become the kings and queens of volunteerism in this moment, because I think first of all, we want to stay positive ourselves, and we stay positive by giving to others. So that's the number one thing when you watch this amazing activity and what people have given to it. So I just want to thank you all so much for coming on tonight as I wipe my nose again. And you're just a wealth of information. We could talk about this for another couple hours, and we might come back to it, because I think as people are doing in-person competitions or more virtual, there's more things being figured out and more questions arising. So
Well,
Yeah.
Tiffany had a question, and I have been on, I think Tiffany and I have the same evening schedule. We've been on a variety of the same things, and I have never heard her speak, only smile. And she has such a beautiful smile. So please let her ask her question.
Well, actually, I was going to point her out, because Tiffany, who's, one of my longtime family loves, and she has gone through the entire judging certification process during COVID. So you've been really productive. How many certifications have you gotten, Tiffany, over COVID?
7.
7.
More
Wow.
than just baton.
Right.
A lot of dance certifications as well. So I've been trying to stay busy. But what I was actually going to say was the California Baton Twirling Council has been doing game nights for their athletes. So like the first night, and because I used to live in California, I'm still connected. There was a bingo where they had athletes who wanted to could come in, and they all worked together on a Zoom. So they could see each other, kind of interact and have the fun games. And then the athletes that were from the state that like had gone away to college or just weren't there, they would come in and say, "Oh, hi, I've been my freshman year at college," at that point when it was still mostly open.
Uh-huh. No, that's a really good idea. So to just
Yeah.
play too at it. So I want to thank you all so much. It's just been a joy to talk to you, and we could keep these conversations going. I hope that if anyone has questions, they can come back to you, and then we'll see what we can do to come back to this topic as it evolves, because I think we're going to keep evolving in what happens with it.
I just want to say that if anybody, is thinking about doing an in-person contest and is interested in, any of my waivers or to speak to me directly, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, through Facebook or, I think my number is on the USGA website. But I'd be happy to walk anybody through what I did, because obviously it was much more extensive, to be able to have more of these contests safely. So anybody who's on this call, or somebody, I've spoken to several people about how to run a contest.
Wonderful. And this will be posted, and feel free to share it. So Tracy, Lori, Dennis, Kim, thank you so much. It's a joy to talk to you, and everybody else who's come on tonight. I love seeing your faces. And, sometimes in parts of the country, it's a sad week, and I leave these Twirl talks and it is far from sad. So thank you for being the light and the future of where our sport can go. And thank you for helping guide everybody else. I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Good
Bye,
night.
everybody.
Bye.